1947 by Elisabeth Asbrink. I've been reading this book off and on for 6 months. It's a long time to read one book. And I decided I'm finally going to write a review. Come hell or high water. I took it out of the Great Neck Library months ago, and then with the COVID virus, I took it out and I didn't return it. So I've been reading it, and the book is a very fine book. That's number one. Very provocative. It doesn't have an index, though. So I made a few notes here, things I want to talk about. So it's about 1947, which, if you ask the man in the street, what was the most important thing about 1947? Well, if you're Jewish, you might think, well, that's when a lot of Jews were trying to get out of Europe. It was only a year or two, a year and a half after the Holocaust, after the end of the war, and there's a lot of. It was before the war, the 48 war. So a lot of the book has to do with the people who survived the Holocaust. And also it's a very personal story in the book. It's one of the saddest episodes I've read in the book. It's about Elisabeth Asbrink's grandfather on her father's side. She calls him her father's father. She calls her grandmother her mother's mother, or his father's mother. It comes right in the middle of the book, out of nowhere, that her grandfather was killed in the Holocaust, and that her father grew up without a dad, basically. Is there anything sadder than growing up without a father? I don't think so. Especially one day after Father's Day. So the book is about genocide, how some of these war criminals were not punished. They escaped to Buenos Aires, or they escaped to Sweden. So a big part of the book is about the aftermath of the Holocaust. You know, the struggle to find a place for the Jews in Israel, Palestine, the opposition of the Arabs, particularly the Palestinian Arabs. So that's one great theme of the book. A horror story after the Holocaust. It even has stories about the ship, the Exodus, or I know a different ship. I forget the name of it. I think there's no index. The British come off very, very badly in this story. You know, Mountbatten, you know, comes off very badly. The English made a mess of things in India, and they were trying to stamp out Zionism after they committed to Zionism. And, you know, I think Bevan is mentioned. So the betrayal of the Jewish people by the English. And it talks a lot about the Stern Gang and the Algreen, how they fought back and they assassinated the British soldiers. And they come off pretty well, but it's the British who come off very badly in this book. What they did in India. She makes fun of Mountbatten. She calls him Dickie. Then there's a section on Truman. He doesn't come up very well either. You know, he's racist. He wrote. She quotes Truman in one of his letters in his diary. The Jews, I find, are very selfish. They care not how many Estonian, Latvians, Finns, Poles, Yugoslavs or Greeks get murdered, mistreated, as long as the Jews get special treatment. Yet when they have power, physical, financial, or political, neither Hitler nor Stalin has anything on them for cruelty or mistreatment of the underdog. Put an underdog on top and make no difference between whether his name is Russian, Jewish, Negro, management, labor, Mormons, Baptist, he goes haywire. So says Truman. Maybe he's right. So Truman doesn't come off very well. And since it's 1947, it's before Truman recognized Israel in May of 48. So Truman never comes off well here. And then there's a part about Orwell. Orwell, by the way, was one of my heroes. And Asbrink doesn't talk too much about, Orwell's the depth of what he wrote about 1984 or Animal Farm. Orwell was a very, very sick man, and he was a loner, poor man. And he was living in a very tough environment. So she talks a bit about that. Another big component of the book is about, what's his name? The guy who wrote Man with the Golden Arm. What's his name again? Okay, let's see. He was very friendly with his girlfriend was Simone de Beauvoir. Did I pronounce it? I can't remember the guy's name. Oh yeah, here it is. What's his name? Nelson Algreen. Kind of an interesting character. I never read any of his books. A biography just came out about him. He wrote about the he was like Ben Hecht in a way, a Chicago-based guy, writing about all the lower classes, the drug addicts, the gamblers, the pimps. That's what he wrote about. He's in the book. I think he was persecuted by the FBI for being a commie or a commie sympathizer. That's a big part of the book as well. So it's a very sad book. And let's see. And then, there's a very interesting part about a fellow named Raphael Lemkin. He's the guy who invented the word genocide. Which, remember, Churchill said, a crime which had no name. Churchill wasn't talking about a genocide. He was talking about the Germans, how they slaughtered the Russian people in the Barbarossa when they invaded the Soviet Union. So, the question I have, so Elisabeth, why did you write this book? Why did you write it? It seems to me she wrote it because look at the world today. The immigrant, the immigrants from the Middle East, immigrants from Latin America. They're treated very poorly, and it's like we're reliving what we had. She also has a section on racism against Billie Holiday, and what's happening in this country. We still have the same issue of racism. So the book is a sad, very, very sad book. And reading it, rereading it. But I highly recommend it. But then one point she doesn't talk about. To me, we're growing up in Brooklyn, New York, 1947. That was the year Jackie Robinson came to the Dodgers as a rookie and broke the color line. The big 1947 for me was that. And the influence Robinson had on my life, the bravery of this man, fighting against racism and also against anti-Semitism. He was very involved with the ADL. Well, and he was like the precursor to, he preceded Martin Luther King, And the army, he was court-martialed. He beat the court-martial for refusing to sit in the back of the bus or So that's something she could have mentioned in the book. But anyway, so I give it 4 stars. I recommend it. And congratulations, Elizabeth. You wrote a very wonderful book. And shalom.